meeting for the Elgin City Council for June 25th, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Here.
Dixon, Good,
Here.
Martinez,
Here.
Ortiz,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Steffen, Thorne,
Here.
Mayor Captain.
Here. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of June 11th.
Second.
Moved and second for approval. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, clerk please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Thorne,
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, the motion is approved 7-0. We have one public comment this evening. Sherry Liskey.
Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great. So hope everyone is well tonight. My name is Sherry Liskey. I live in Elgin. Tonight, I would like to express my concern about the recent abductions of people off the streets of our city. Where is the statement from the city regarding the practice of masked individuals causing accidents to detain others, and more dramatically, smashing vehicle windows and pulling people out of their cars? Really, this is an outrage. This is not a positive image of a welcoming city. What we need is a commitment to embracing services and public support for our community. Do not let those decades and millions of dollars of relationship building dissolve before our very eyes as people are disappeared without due process. Respectfully, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we have one item that is on both agendas, and that's the property insurance program renewal from the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Property insurance is annually renewed every year on July 1st. The risk management staff has obtained a renewal premium that is about $18,000 lower than the previous year. This decrease is being driven by what Ms. Wazalewski refers to expanded capacity in the property marketplace, which means that the insurers are writing more policies, so that enables them to reduce the premiums across the board. The city's insurance carrier has provided 4 years of rate decreases during the past 14 years. Risk manager Kelly Wazalewski is here to answer any questions the council may have, but again, this item is on both agendas.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Wazlewski at this time? For the manager? Okay.
Item 2 is another annual event, and this is the presentation of the city's annual Consolidated Financial Report by Sikich LLC. This time we're dealing with the 2024 report. Sikich Principal Jim Savio will be discussing Elgin's 2024 Annual Consolidated Financial Report. Welcome again this evening, Mr. Savio.
Thank you, and thanks everyone here for your time tonight. Really do appreciate it. Want to thank Deb and her entire staff for all their assistance again throughout the entire audit process. They were able to answer our questions, get us all the information we needed. We met our audit deadlines and audit schedule and got the reports out on time. So I want to thank them for their professionalism during the entire process. So typically, kind of what I do each year, I'm going to go through the annual comprehensive financial reports. That's going to be the big report. I'm not going to go super in-depth in it. I'll go through the table of contents to give you an idea of what's in the report, high-level overview. I'll talk about our independent auditor's report and then what we call our yellow book opinion. That follows right after that. And then go through just a few of the highlights in the annual comprehensive financial report. So, like I said, I'll start with the table of contents. And if you look at the table of contents, there's basically 3 main sections: the introductory, financial, and statistical section. In the financial section, it starts with our 2 reports that I mentioned, the independent auditor's report, and then our report on internal control over compliance, on internal control over financial reporting, and on compliance and other matters. That follows right after that. That's required because you had a single audit this year, so you expended more than $750,000 in federal funds, so you're required to have what we call a yellow book opinion. That's on pages 5 and 6. I'll also talk about that in a second. Management discussion and analysis follows after that. I will also briefly touch on that. And then the basic financial statements start right after that. So the basic financial statements are what we give our opinion on. That's the section that we do give a full opinion on. And then I'll tell you kind of what we do with the rest of the information in the report when I go through the independent auditor's report. So we start with the government-wide financial statements, the pages 7 through 10, the statement of net position, the statement of activities. This is basically the consolidated financial statements for the city. So it includes all of the funds except for the fiduciary funds. It's broken out between governmental activities and then business type activities. Your business type activities being water, sewer, and golf. It has a long-term focus. So it has capital assets, it has long-term debt, and it's similar to corporate financial statements. So an apples-to-apples comparison to a regular corporation, it would be these financial statements compared against a corporation's financial statements. Right after that, then are the fund financial statements, and the governmental funds are a little bit different. They have a short-term focus. They're on pages 11 through 15. So no capital assets, no long-term debt. It's just focused on current spendable resources, typical or similar to how you budget. Basically, it's broken out by major fund, and then all the other funds are combined into a non-major column that's to the right. More detailed information on those non-major funds are included in the back of the financial statement, so you can see those individual funds in the back. And then there's a reconciliation on pages 13 and 15 that show you how you get from that short-term focus to the long-term focus. After that, then on pages 16 through 20 are the proprietary fund financial statements. Like I said, that's water, sewer, and golf, and then the 3 internal service funds. There's a balance sheet, an income statement, and then a statement of cash flows. So basically, same long-term focus, just a little more detail, different format, and there's also, like I said, a statement of cash flows. Then on pages 21 and 22 are the fiduciary funds. That's your police pension, fire pension, retiree health, and then the 2 custodial funds. They present a balance sheet and an income statement. Then after that are the notes to the financial statements. That's on pages 23 through 85. So a lot of great additional information that supports the basic financial statements and should be read in conjunction with it. Then after that, on pages 86 through 105 are the required supplementary information, or RSI. So there's a budget versus actual statement for the general fund, and then additional information on your retiree plans and your retiree health plans. Then after that, on pages 106 through 164 are the combining and individual fund financial statements and schedules. So that's where you'll see a lot of those non-major funds, the budget versus actual, and then combining statements for those funds. And then finally, the stats are on pages 165 through 192. You'll see those broken out into separate sections. A lot of them have 10-year trend information. And a lot of it's non-accounting related, so it is some very interesting information in the stats section. So that's what's in the report. I'm going to start on page 1, which is the independent auditor's report. So on page 1, the very first section is the opinion paragraphs. And again, this year we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide to the city. And it basically says in that second paragraph that the statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. And then on pages 3 and 4, as I mentioned previously, this explains basically what we did with the rest of the information. So in the other matters section on pages 3, the required supplementary information is what I mentioned previously, plus the MD&A, the management discussion and analysis. We do some limited procedures on this information, but not enough to give an opinion. The supplementary information is the combining an individual fund financial statements and schedules. That is, we give what we call an in relation to opinion. So in relation to the basic financial statements, they are not materially misstated. And then finally on page 4, The other information is considered the introductory and statistical sections. Now, these we don't give an opinion on. We are required to read the information, make sure it's not materially misstated or materially inconsistent with the basic financial statements. If it was, then we would ask you to correct that, and if it wasn't corrected, we'd communicate that to the council. So everything was materially correct. And then right after that is our report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters on pages 5 and 6. Again, like I said, this is required by the single audit. And you can see the first section is a report on internal control over financial reporting. And you can see at the very last paragraph on page 5, basically it communicates that we had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted. And then the report on compliance and other matters is the very first paragraph on page 6. And there we simply communicate that there were no instances of non-compliance noted. And then right after that is management's discussion and analysis. This is Deb's favorite thing to do each year, is to prepare this. Provides, like I say every year, great overview of the city's financial position and changes in financial position. It'll point out any significant changes or trends that might be occurring. And it also has some 2-year comparative data that you can't find elsewhere in the report. So I'm a broken record, but I tell you every year, if you only want to read one thing in the 200-plus page report, read the MD&A, because it's a good overview of the city's finances. Now I'm going to skip to page 11, not MD&A page 11, but actual page 11. So these are those governmental funds. This is the balance sheet. So these are the financial statements that have the short-term focus. And if you take a look at the general fund, that is your very first column. The assets and deferred outflows are on page 11. And then liabilities, deferred inflows, and fund balances are on page 12. And you'll see all the way down at the bottom, the unassigned fund balance for the general fund is about $120.6 million. So that's an increase from last year's balance of $109 million. So that's a 9-month reserve based on the 2024 expenditures. So that 9-month reserve is pretty much the same as it was last year. I will point out this general fund includes the Riverboat Fund because they're combined, but there is a combining statement or combining statements or schedules on pages 149 through 151. So if you excluded the Riverboat Fund, just looked at the general corporate fund, it still had a 9-month reserve for the year. And then the income statement is on page 14. And again, looking at the general fund, the about 3/4 of the way down, the excess of revenues over expenditures was about $15.2 million. Last year, it was about $19.9 million. And then after other financing sources and uses, mainly transfers out, the net increase in fund balance was about $7.8 million. Last year, that was about $17.4 million. And now I'm going to skip all the way to some of the pension info, starting on page 88. And what these next few schedules show for 10 years now is the schedule of employer contributions for IMRF, for police pension, and for fire pension. So on page 88 is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. The first line is the actuarially determined contribution. So this is what the actuary at IMRF says you should contribute. You're contributing exactly what you should, so there's no excess or deficiency. And then you can see the contributions as a percentage of covered payroll is that very last line. So that kind of gives you an idea what the pension burden is for the city. And you can see how that's steadily decreased at IMRF from about 12.3% in 2015 down to about 4.75% now. So, and you'll see in a minute it's because of how well funded IMRF is. So same information for police pensions on page 90. You can see that it fluctuates a little bit, but mainly you're contributing what you should or a little bit more each year. The contribution as a percentage of covered payroll is obviously higher than IMRF. It has come down a little bit recently in the last few years, and that contribution rate assumes that you're going to 100% fund it by 2040. So that's one reason why it's a little bit higher. Fire pension is the very next page, on page 91. You'll see, again, the contribution as a percentage of covered payroll is higher than IMRF, but it has come down slightly over the past few years. Again, same assumption here, you're going to fund it 100% by 2040. And then the last thing I will go over in the annual comprehensive financial report is on page 93. And this basically shows your funded status for IMRF for the last 10 years. And again, you'll see up at the top is the total pension liability. So the actuary calculates that. The plan fiduciary net positions are what you've paid into IMRF and is in trust to pay for those liabilities. And then liabilities minus assets gets you a net pension liability or net pension assets. You can see been pretty well funded, especially with the investment returns over the past few years. It kind of fluctuates mainly based on investment returns, but you can see the net pension liability is about $3.4 million, down about $10 million from 2022. 2022, really bad investment year. 2023, much better investment year. And you can see on page 94 is the funded ratio, and you'll see how it's pretty much fluctuated between 90 to all the way up to about 110%. So very, very well funded. Same information on page 97 for the police pension fund. So you can see those liabilities are a little bit higher, like we said, but again, the funding assumption is that you're going to fully fund by 2040. And then you can see the funded ratio is the very first line on page 98. And again, that has increased in the last 10 years from about 41% in 2015 to about 57%. So we have seen progress there. And then same information for the firefighters pension fund, liability of about $95 million. That's on page 99. And then again, funded ratios increased from about 44% to about 59%. So again, trending positively there. I kind of lied. I'll just point out on page 149 and 150, these are those combining schedules for the general fund. So you can see the actual general corporate fund and then the Elgin Riverboat Fund. Balance sheets on page 149 and 150. And then income statement is on page 151. So if you want to see just how the corporate did by itself, you can take a look there. So that's all I have for the annual comprehensive financial report. I'll talk real briefly about the board communication report. That's the auditor's communication to city council and management. And if you look at the table of contents again, we do have some required communication that we have to have every year. That's on pages 2 through 4. Again, pretty routine communication this year. Like I said, we didn't have any disagreements with management, no delays with the audit at all. We did implement GASB 101, which was related to compensated absences, but it didn't have any material effect on the city, so there was no adjustments needed to the financial statements. But we wanted to communicate that we did implement GASB 101 this year. We had only one audit adjustment. That was on page 5. And not considered to be material, but we did have that one entry on page 5. We didn't have what we call past adjusting journal entries. So these would be entries that were deemed to be immaterial, so we didn't record them. But above a certain floor, we have to communicate that to the city council. So didn't have any past adjustments. So the one thing that needed to be adjusted, we adjusted. And then the communication of deficiencies starts right after that. That is on page 7. So like I said before, we didn't have any material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no new deficiencies this year. So we communicate that on page 7. And then Appendix A on page 8 is just the status of comments from the prior year. And we have a status update just saying that the city's done a cost benefit about whether they should implement a perpetual inventory system. Didn't feel like the benefits outweighed the costs, and there's other compensating controls, including, periodic physical inventories. So they felt like that wasn't necessary to have a perpetual system at this time. So next year, this comment will drop off. So that is all I had. We also issued, like we do each year, a management letter that basically states in writing that there were no material weaknesses. We had the 3 TIF reports again this year: Bluff City, Central Area, and then Route 20. We gave unmodified opinions on management's assertion of compliance with Public Act 85-1142. We had the single audit, like I said, and we had an unmodified opinion on compliance with the requirements for each of the major federal programs, which was ARPA this year, and then IDOT Highway Planning and Construction. We also had an unmodified in relation to opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards as well. And then the last report is the Consolidated Year-End Financial Report that's required by GATA. We gave, again, an unmodified in relation to opinion on that schedule. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of these reports.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Savio at this time? Mr. Savio, I'll have a question, and this may be tucking into your expertise a little bit and your experience with other communities and their concerns with other mayors, and we're concerned about some of the things that are out of our control. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is insurance costs, and the federal government now has, in other states, has withdrawn FEMA funding for disaster funding. And the other is an increase in potential sales tax from tariffs. And how do you look at those kind of things, and how do we anticipate that? Should we anticipate that type of thing as a community? And it's like a moving target. I understand.
Yeah.
Rapidly, I think by the time we get done here at 6:30, it'll probably be changing.
I was going to say, if anyone could guess what's going to happen with FEMA and with federal grants and everything, they'll probably be a rich person. Because it's just hard to plan for anything at this point, like on any level, because things change so much that there's no constant. So it's hard to really plan for anything because you don't know if funding is going to be there or not. So my only advice would be to, you have to plan conservatively. You have to assume that you're
I think that's kind
not
of where I was headed.
you're not going to get it.
The only option we have is to look at our reserves.
Yep.
And say, should we look at increasing reserves if we need to do that? And I think it's going to be a challenge for us to do that over the next couple years anyway, if we ever do get any stability here. But
yeah, I think you have to assume that you're not going to receive that federal funding, and that tariffs are most likely going to increase your costs. So yeah, looking at reserves, I think you have strong reserves in the general fund. 9 months is strong. Typically it's 3 to 9 months reserves. So you guys have strong reserves there, and your home rule. So if you need to increase revenues, it's a little easier, obviously, for you guys to do it than a non-home rule community. So I think you're positioned well, but it's anyone's guess what's going to happen.
yeah, and overall everything is looks very solid here for the city, and with funding and consistent revenue sources. So that's been a big plus for us for the last 10 years or so. And I think that's a positive, but it's also part of what we have to do is be more conservative sometimes when you want to get, we see extra money sometimes and we think that it's a good thing, and sometimes that can turn into a problem for us down the road if we need to have extra planning sometimes. So thank you very much for that. And anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks again for your time tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Item C, Mayor, is the 2025 CDBG Annual Action Plan. The city's received approximately $43.1 million in community development block grant funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development since 1975. The city in recent years has been using its CDBG funds for improving neighborhood parks and nonprofit facilities and redeveloping quality affordable housing and also providing services to address homelessness. The city this year received 2 applications from area not-for-profits for facility development projects and 2 applications for homelessness and supportive services projects. Affordable housing initiatives and administrative responsibilities were also reviewed and considered. This year, the city expects to have about $990,000 in CDBG funds available for program year 2025. The CDBG review panel met in April of this year and is recommending funding for the Community Crisis Center, Senior Services, Fellowship Housing Corporation, the Affordable Housing Fund, and the Owner-Occupied Housing Rehabilitation Program. The specific figures of those awards are outlined in the memo.
Second.
Moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion? Ms. Alfaro?
I had 2 questions. I saw that the city had emailed over like 30 nonprofits. Was there also an open call?
There is an open call that goes out as well. That
Okay,
is correct.
perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. And then just a quick question for clarification. So some of the potential awardees need additional funds for their projects to be completed. How long do they have to use this money? Is it 1 fiscal year? Because some of them look like they had a plan, others didn't have a plan yet.
I don't know the specific answer to that question, though I am aware of instances in the past where the funds have been rolled over because the projects haven't been spent. I'm sorry I can't be more specific with that, but I'll be able to provide you an express answer by email. Thank you, council member.
If I can, Mayor.
One of the panel members.
Mr. Ortiz?
Last year, I think it was the YMCA, it was me and Ms. Rauschenberger on the committee, and they came up with a plan, but the way the money works is it has to be Elgin residents that get the benefit of it. So we approved the YWCA, the one over on Larkin, or McLean, right on the corner, to get the money, but we didn't release them the money until they gave us a plan of how they're going to spend the money. And then when we met back in April, I asked Mr. Malat that if we ever gave them those funds, and he said no because they never came up with their plan. So they lost the money. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's another way that we approve it, but then they have to give us a plan of how they're going to spend it and how it's going to benefit the Elgin residents.
No, I appreciate that, the checks and balance into that. So thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. Anything else? Ms. Powell?
Yes, can we clarify, how are the 2 council members that were appointed to this, how did that come about?
I was just asked to join. I don't know. I think Mr. Malat's the one that picked them.
Mayor?
And Mr. Stefan was, you filled for Ms. Rauschenberger, correct?
Yeah, because I think it was Councilwoman Rauschenberger and Councilman Stefan before.
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious how folks were selected, but I think some of this will come up later on in the agenda in terms of how folks are selected to fill positions, because that wasn't something that was open to the rest of the council.
No.
Unless I missed it.
If it was I don't think it fit, if I recall, again, that's hard to do. I think when Ms. Rauschenberger term was up, I don't think the CDBG was in progress at that time. Is that correct? Mr. Ortiz? They had started the conversations when her term was expired?
I was on there with Ms. Rauschenberger, and then Ms. Martinez took Ms. Rauschenberger's spot. I don't know who was on there before I was, if that's the question you're asking.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe when I was asked, they asked for my availability, and I said I was available at that time
Okay.
when they meet.
Yeah, I think that was through Mr. Malat. I think he asks if people are available to do it during the day, and I think that's one of the issues, so.
Okay. I just don't remember
Yeah, I
that
don't-
being made available to everybody. So I would just ask that in the future, we have some type of process, or that it be made available to everyone on the council, or the council we select, just kind of like we do with the commission, the commission appointments, the liaisons, that we select who's going to do this every year. So that's my request moving forward.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Thorne,
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 7-0.
Item D is the city's membership renewal in the Metro West Council of Government. Metro West, as it's commonly referred to, is a not-for-profit organization representing 37 municipalities across Kane, Kendall, and DeKalb counties. Collectively serves over 750,000 residents. As one of its founding members, Elgin benefits from Metro West's ability to convene regional partners, advocate for shared legislative priorities, and enhance municipal effectiveness. Regional collaboration has the potential to save local dollars in this ever-constrained fiscal environment. Regional councils of government are poised to serve as more than a forum to meet these challenges, and Metro West is particularly well-positioned to improve the capabilities of its member municipalities. Indicated, Elgin has been a member of Metro West since 2004, and the annual cost for its contributions has not increased during that time period.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved in second for approval, any discussion?
Yes, Mayor Captain?
Mr. Good, get your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to throw a compliment to them. I'm happy to see they updated their website. Been looking for that for a couple of years, and I'm happy to see they did that.
Leslie Melinda, yep.
Ms. Paul?
Yes, a question I have, we used to get updates from them, like an e-newsletter on a periodic basis. I haven't seen any of those lately. Did they stop doing those once they updated their website?
Not that I'm aware of. I get communications from Metro West, so can see whether we can have city council member names added to it. I didn't know that that dropped off.
No, I'll have to check because I do get an update. Whoop, thank you. I do get an update, and they do have a newsletter that comes out more frequently than that, and update what's going on in Metro West. So I'm not sure that maybe they didn't catch up with the new email addresses. Because I have not had a problem getting it.
Does anyone else up here get them?
That's like IMLA or whatever the hell the other one.
I'm new, but I don't, so I would like to be ahead if that's okay.
Yeah, because this was an issue before, a few years ago, and they added all of the council members to the email list. But I don't know what happened. We stopped getting them,
Okay,
so.
that's the first I've heard, but I have been getting them.
I get them about once a month, too. This is the first that I've heard that council members haven't been getting them. That was like the email that I forwarded to you, Councilmember Alfaro, about the workshop availability. That's how I got that, yeah. All right, we'll get it added.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be helpful. It would also, I would like to have them come and just do, just like we had with our lobbyists, just kind of talk about some of the work that they do. I do value the work that comes out of Metro West and the other council of governments. I think they are valuable, and but I think it's important to actually hear from them, and so that our constituents can hear, hey, this is what we get from them, and these are some of the things that they're working on. Because I don't know, and I know most of the time they do a drive down every year to Springfield. I don't think anyone from Elgin, unless I'm missing something, did anyone from Elgin participate in the Metro West drive down this year?
No, we haven't gone in the last few years because we've had our own, and Dan Showman's been doing a good job. We were down there ourselves this year, so.
Well, I think it was it last year or 2 years ago when we had Elgin Day down there?
Right.
But I'm talking about the one that they did early. I think they do it during the legislative session, like earlier this year.
Yeah,
in
they've been trying to
2025.
avoid doing it with a municipal league because it causes kind of hard to get to see people. So they've been jockeying their things around too, so.
Yeah, most of the COGs do their own. I was just curious if anyone from Elgin had participated in the drive down.
No.
So just questions. I'm supportive, but I just, would like to see more information come forward.
I'll talk to Ms. Melendi, and they'll be happy to come and do a presentation sometime. It's good.
If I can add though, Mayor, I think what's important is they serve 37 municipalities, and the function that it works, they put on programs in which everybody is welcome to attend. Obviously, you don't know whether you can attend if you're not getting email
Right.
updates on that. But I think that you'll see with the schedule of benefits that they have, there's going to be many opportunities to engage at whatever level you wish to do. There's a legislative breakfast, there's a legislative barbecue, there's
which is tonight.
no shortage. Okay, so,
By the
yeah,
way, so,
unfortunately conflicted, but we'll get the emails added. I just didn't know that they dropped off. I apologize for that.
yeah, I wasn't aware either.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you. I'm going to be voting in support of this, but I do just want to point out that ourselves being Elgin and the city of Aurora pay significantly more than our neighboring communities. And it's, and I've talked to the city manager about this. There is power in collective action. So when they are lobbying on the behalf of us and also all these other municipalities, there's power in numbers. And so I certainly do understand that. But with this being taxpayer dollars, understanding that making sure that we're getting the value or that it's equal in some regards to these other communities, and it's just not. We're paying significantly more. But they have been doing good work, so I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I do want to point that out because I believe that people need to know that. So, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Ms. Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that sometimes I hear you, Mayor, or Mike Pubin say, about Metro West, that either you hear things or we get things from them, and I think that goes a long way. And I believe one time I was able to attend when they had it here. It was a few years. It's been a while, and it was just impressive of all the stuff that we were able to get from Metro West. The $30,000 that we paid came a long way. And I get it, just like Mr. Dixon said, Aurora and Elgin, because we're the largest communities, and I believe that's why we pay more. I will be in support of this, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro?
Yes.
Dixon?
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Martinez?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Thorne?
Yes.
Mayor Captain?
Yes, motion's approved 7-0.
Item E is the Country Knolls South 2025 Resurfacing Project. This is a resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, often referred to as an MFT construction resolution. This identifies the city's plan for allocating its motor fuel tax funds for the construction and construction engineering services related to this particular improvement. With this resolution, staff are presenting the project limits and scope of work for the Country Knolls South 2025 resurfacing project, as well as estimates for the cost of construction and the cost of construction engineering services for the project.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and second for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro?
Yes.
Dixon?
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Martinez?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Thorne?
Yes.
Mayor Captain?
Yes, motion's approved 8-0.
Item F is a review of the City Council Rules of Procedure. City ordinances provide that the City Council's review of its rules and procedures occurs within 60 days following each City Council election. This item is being presented to the City Council to comply with that ordinance requirement.
Any discussion? Mr. Ortiz.
Yeah, I'll go first. I emailed out to the council, I think it was last Monday, or maybe the Monday before, a couple of things that I think that maybe we should change and discuss about the boards and commissions, and then one item about executive session of document handling. After sending this out, I talked to almost everybody on the council about making council members non-voting members, attendance requirements, the appointment process for the commissioners, and rotation of liaisons, and then assignment conflicts if two council members want the same appointment. After talking to everybody and then going through it over the past week or so, I think somebody might correct me, which is okay. I think that where we're at now is just grandfathering in Ms. Powell to the cultural arts and then just stripping the council from every other commission is what I think most of the council members want. And then for the executive session item, I had that no items come out of exec. Right after talking to most of the colleagues here on the dais, I think the consensus is that no city staff materials come out of the executive session. But if you take your own personal notes or doodles or whatever you do, then that's okay to take with you and take home for future reference. So those are the two things that I have here for council rules for possible changing.
Anything else? Ms. Alfaro?
I have a question of clarification to Councilmember Ortiz. Are you saying that there is no more liaison? Did I understand you correctly?
Yes. So Ms. Powell will stay on cultural arts since she's still on there now. She'll retain all the same roles and responsibilities that she has, and then we'll just kill council liaisons for all the other commissions. Besides like the outside ones like CDBG, Housing Authority, Home, Visitors Bureau, things that are like not a city functioned commission.
Thank you for clarifying. If I may continue, thank you, Mayor. Going back to Councilmember Powell's comment from earlier, if we could put in the council rules that we vote for CDBG and for the list that Councilmember Ortiz just provided, the Visitor Bureau, et cetera, the appointments to those, the Housing Authority, that should be approved by the council, if everyone's okay with that.
That there may be a problem there. That's by the Housing Authority is from the state of Illinois, and it's a statute. And it's the mayor appoints that person.
Okay, so then all the other ones except for that one then.
And Ms. Powell, would you rather have this referred to as grandmothering or grandfathering?
I'll just say that we'll observe past precedents.
All right.
I guess my question is, because Councilwoman Rauschenberger, former Councilwoman Rauschenberger, was the council liaison to sustainability, and I don't think we have a current council liaison for HRC. Those were the only, and then myself as the liaison to Cultural Arts Commission. So I just want to make sure I'm clear in understanding my colleagues that we're not interested in having council liaisons to those other two commissions moving forward.
That's what I understand the consensus is.
Okay.
Which, if they want to speak up and I'm misinterpreting what they told me, then so be it. But that's what I'm understanding.
And I'm fine with that, because mine is a little unique because I think I was the only voting member.
Yeah.
No, Ms. Rauschenberger voted. I'm not sure if Mr. Dixon did or not on HRC.
Okay. So yes, I'm a voting member of Cultural Arts Commission.
And just to clear,
Mr. Dixon?
yeah, and I just wanted to say, yes, I was a voting member of the HRC.
Okay. If that's the consensus, I'm fine. I enjoy Cultural Arts Commission. It's a very unique group of folks that actually do a lot. So, very active group, and so I'm fine with that. Maybe some of the other things that in Councilman Ortiz and I did have a chance to speak. I guess I'm a little, probably not a little, I'm not necessarily in agreement with the executive session recommendation. I guess I'm trying to understand what problem are we trying to correct? Does a problem currently exist that we're trying to correct?
It's not a problem we're trying to fix. It's just a preventative measure that we don't want a problem to be created.
So I guess my concern is our role as policymakers, our fiduciary responsibility of asking questions and getting information and having that. I don't see a problem with us being able to take, everybody doesn't necessarily want to, so if you don't want to, don't. but I think that for those people who may want to take things out, I don't see a problem with it. I could see if we can point to specific situations, especially lately, where, oh, well, this has been leaked and this has been leaked, or, I mean, because I don't think we've had that, at least in the last 5 or 7 years I've been on the council. I trust my colleagues up here to, guard that information carefully. But the quick 15, 20 minutes that we're in executive session reviewing that information isn't always sufficient. If we want to go back, once we get home later on and refer to something, I think it's important to have that information. But I find it really odd that we are restricting ourselves from information that we should be using to make decisions in this community. Like I said, if there was a problem, I could see going forward with this, but if we can't point to a problem that we're trying to solve, why are we restricting ourselves? I'll be honest, I've taken stuff out of executive session before. Has it shown up in the paper? No. Has it been a problem? No. And I cleared that, and we make it clear. This is under a previous corporation counsel. He just said, hey, just make sure that you keep that to yourself. And that's exactly what I did, and it wasn't a problem.
We still have the time to collect data, because in exec, it's a preliminary meeting of what a possible thing could happen in the future. Then we have committee of the whole, then we can get deeper and dive, and they have to go with committee of the whole, or goes to city council. So we have 3 more meetings that you can get deeper and deeper into the whole if you want to. So to say that we're restricting data or information out of exec is hurting us in the future, I don't believe that to be an accurate statement, because we have 2 more meetings where if it does go public and it's something that we actually go down that road of either buying a property that's exempt in exec, or termination of an employee, or raise of an employee, or whatever, that ends up going public, and then we can go deeper down into that dive of information. So I personally don't think, which I'm just one vote here of the 9 of us, so the council can go a different direction, that's okay, that we're not restricting ourselves, because at the end of the day, if we do go in the hole and it does become substantive information, it goes public anyways, and then we have 2 more meetings down the road where we can go deeper dive and have all the information that we want between all these meetings.
Well, I mean, I think, I just don't.
And then you still have your own personal notes, like you mentioned, that some of us don't take notes. We have better memories than us. Like me, I take notes sometimes because I don't have the best memory, but.
Some of it, it's a lot to take notes on. I'll just be honest. It's a whole lot. But I fundamentally just have a problem with that. I mean, this goes back to a few years ago when, I was attacked for asking questions of our outside investigator that we hired to do police investigations. And there was nothing inappropriate about the questions that were being asked. That is my responsibility as a council member to ask questions that A, I have, and B, that members of the public have. So again, what problem are we trying to solve by restricting this information? It just doesn't jive with me. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that everyone has to walk out with stuff. If you want to, fine, not an issue. Just understand that if you walk out with something, you have a responsibility to keep that private. And if you choose not to walk out with it, that's up to you as well. But I just don't feel like anybody up here should be able to tell me that I can't walk out with information. I think I really do have a problem with that.
Well, I guess we'll see what everybody else has to say, but that's my point, and I understand
No.
your point also. So.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't feel like it should be that I don't feel like I should tell anyone else up here that oh, you should not have access to certain information, or you should not be able to walk out with information that is being shared with us. I mean, unless we know, or it's been a problem in the past that, hey, you know what, everything we've given Anthony, it's showing up in the paper the next week.
Well, I just want to make it clear, we're not restricting information to anybody. We're just not bringing it out of exec. And then we're not restricting questions that are able to be asked. So that's want to make that clear. We're not restricting any questions anybody can ask, and we're not restricting information. So I don't want to get those two things blurred.
Okay, but I still, you know, some of this stuff, yes, some people are able to take notes. Sometimes it's a lot of information to take notes on. Again, I just go back to what problem are we trying to fix? I don't think that it's a problem, so why are we trying to fix something that doesn't seem to be a problem?
Okay, way down this way. Oh, lots of hands. Mr. Good, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the benefit of the community, executive session typically covers a few different areas: property acquisitions, contract negotiations, or the discussion of an employee. So for some of those, it's sensitive information. Say we're looking at a piece of property, we're going to decide what we think the best use of it is, what we'd be willing to expend for it, and there's different steps in that process. For employee issues, I think you can understand that's handled sensitively in most organizations. For contract negotiations, same there. So for this point about we're not going after a specific issue that's happened, I think that's kind of hard to pin down. If our barrier for that is that it ends up in the newspaper, because if it is information that we're to get out and it happens to benefit a group that we're negotiating with, we're not necessarily going to know what information they had and when they deployed it and how that landed for both sides. So I just want to put that out there, is that that's not always how we should be measuring whether or not something like happened. For me, I don't want to, if somebody needs more help absorbing the information, I don't want to stop that from happening. I think maybe an in-between would be if that's going to happen and you want to take materials out that is documented, that perhaps corporate counsel logs that information was taken out of the room by said person, so it's a chain of custody. And then to the point of what Councilmember Powell brought up about the council having questions about the outside investigation firm. We hired an internal or an independent investigator, and that was brought up by a couple of council members, so we had that discussion here, and that vote was 8-1. That night, that vote went down, that was 8-1. So I don't like the characterization that necessarily was an attack. I think we had a conversation about how we handle information as a group, and I think that night we decided definitively that if you have questions of an independent investigation firm that we hire, that you ask them to come to this body in front of us, so those questions are public. I agree, I trust everybody on this council, I don't think there's anything nefarious going on, but for us to operate with an expectation of a shroud of a phone call to an independent investigation firm, that's what made everybody uneasy that evening, and that's why we said going forward, it's best if we have those conversations in the public eye. I just wanted to address a few of those points on the specific issue of executive materials. Again, like I said, I'm not necessarily trying to lock this all down, but for reasons I just laid out, there's a reason why items end up in executive session and they aren't freely discussed here at a certain point. They do ultimately end up here in the public forum, and we do make decisions based on that information that we talked about in executive session. So just wanted to put that out there, and I'll look forward to hear what my colleagues have to say.
Okay. Ms. Martinez, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. I was asked by two different people about executive materials, and I remember before we had an issue with that, and that was when I first got on the council. And with executive materials, I think that if I can't remember anything in executive session, I would right away call corporate counsel to go ahead and refresh my memory. But I also told the person that if you need to write notes, you know, you're more than welcome to write notes. I never take anything that is handed to us because in case something does happen, you know, I would be suspect, and I don't want to be put in that situation. I will be honest, in the last meeting that we had, or a couple of meetings, somebody came and made public comments, and they referred to something that we were going to discuss in executive session. And to me, that was suspect, because I didn't know what was going to be discussed in executive session, and that was the first I heard. And so just to avoid all that, I think that we have to be careful. We have to be careful, especially when we're talking about acquisition of land, you know. And then back to your comments, Ms. Powell, with all due respect, when we're talking about independent investigation, you know, I think the correct thing that should have been done, should have talked to Chief Lally, Corporate Counsel, City Manager, and like Councilman Good said, it was 8-1 vote. And just to avoid all that, that's why I think that we are walking on eggshells with this. If you don't want any problems, the best thing is don't take anything that's handed to us. And the other thing is, if you want to write your notes, that's fine. I just think sometimes it's just the perception. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dixon.
Thank you. I think that, you know, we're all fairly intelligent people up here discussing this issue. But let me say, like, you know, it's an old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, nothing has happened. Nothing is happening. I don't recall in my 8 years up here of anything happening in executive session where information is leaked out to the public or to the papers or anything like that. But in listening to everyone this evening, I think there is one oversight that I do want to point out. In executive session, we often give direction to corporate counsel. So, you know, corporate counsel may come to us and ask us what he would like, what we would like for him to do when it comes to purchasing a property, if it's a contract negotiation, and these things are lengthy documents, okay, very complicated, and so you can get a certain breadth of knowledge in a conversation, which is most of executive session, but in providing that direction to corporate counsel on the spot, not at committee of the whole, not at a future city council meeting, you're doing it right there. Being able to take that information with you when you leave, I think, is really important. Now, I'm not, you know, we get information all the time in tangible documents, and, you know, maybe a time or two I've taken home something to read it and to really understand it, because the conversations that are being had are you know, 1,000-foot conversations. You know, being able to get into every detail of every contract and every negotiation is just, you know, it's just not plausible. It's not, you can't do that in an executive session unless you're going to be there 2, 3, 4 hours, which in some cases actually has happened. But we're never going through you know, 100 or 200-page document item by item. And so I believe that doing the job that we were elected to do means having access to information in order to make a more informed decision. So, you know, I don't necessarily believe that one way is better than the other. I take the stance of, if you want it, take it with you. You know the precautions. I actually like the idea that Councilman Good just gave, which is a chain of custody. I think that's a fair compromise, and you don't get everything that you want. So I would support that measure if we wanted to change it to include that in the item.
Well, Ms. Alfaro, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's helpful to have documentation because it helps you make an informed decision. As has been mentioned by my colleagues, you get this information short and sweet, summary. There's these documents. For me, I like to be able to take it home, dive into it more, be able to provide feedback if I feel like I need to provide feedback to the city manager or corporate counsel. So I think the information is helpful to make sure that we're making informed decisions later on, even prior to it coming to the committee of the whole or into to a regular meeting. I think the the compromise with the chain of custody. I also wrote that. I thought that was a good compromise. And then the only thing I would like to add is if we're in those executive section that we're going to put in here, if we could also add that if we invite guests to the meeting, that guests will have to be recused before a vote is happened or further discussion to ensure more confidentiality.
Just a couple comments for me. For 12 or 14 years now, one of the things that I've done and has been, if there's something that I think is especially sensitive for some reason, maybe a land acquisition, maybe something we're talking about union, I'll ask the corporate counsel, do you want this back? And I think that's an appropriate way to go about it. They're the ones that have to deal with those types of things. If feel that there's information there that should be protected, I can leave it up to them and ask that that's returned to them. And we've done that in the past. I don't believe it's happened with Mr. Beck. Mr. Beck, can you recall that since you've been doing this wonderful job today?
It is a wonderful job, and no, I don't recall this coming up until recently. I don't recall ever having to kind of opine on it. So
Yeah.
I think, just to comment on some of the comments we've had, I mean, one important area that hasn't been mentioned yet is also the settlement of litigation. That's another reason why we go into an executive session. The purpose of it is, I know the council understands, and I think the public understands, it's allowed under Illinois law. It's encouraged. A city council couldn't function if they couldn't talk about some things in some kind of closed session when it's sensitive material. And it's not just always making it to the papers. I think Mr. Good commented sometimes if it's a contract negotiation, if it gets to the other party's hands. So, whether it's oral or written, there's a duty to keep the material confidential. And so I'm not aware of it being a problem, but, I think any steps the council decides as a group to take in that regard would be appropriate. I think if there was something that was particularly sensitive, I would definitely communicate that to the council and maybe ask for additional steps. I mean, I think that's certainly reasonable.
And I think that's the important key here, because that's what many of these, the sensitive discussions are. A lot of, we have an open discussions, but when you start getting into pricing or contracts and stuff like that, it can be sensitive and can put us at a disadvantage. That's why we're cautious about that. So I don't know where to go from here, Mr. Manager. I think we've kind of chewed through the things that are on the from the council procedure parts. We seem to be hung up on this portion, but I think the direction, the conversation is something that we can handle internally without making any great changes here. If they would like to have a chain of custody form, I don't see that that's a big problem at all for anybody if you want to take something home. But I think it's best to defer to Mr. Beck. And if there's an issue here that we think is sensitive, then let him make that decision for us. And if the material needs to stay in his hands, I think that's appropriate. Okay. Ms. Powell.
One of the other, actually two items I wanted to bring up related to council rules of procedure. One, I bring it up just about every time we talk about this, is changing the order of how we do our roll call voting. I know most people are not necessarily in favor of that or don't think it's important, but I think there's some benefit, especially, because as we get down to the end of the table, people can kind of see how other folks have voted. And I'm not saying that always influences everyone's vote, but I think it would be helpful to change up the order of our votes so that the same people aren't voting first or same people aren't voting last, with the exception of the mayor, each and every time. I would say 90% of the time, this really isn't an issue. It's, we're approving bids and it's, 9-0. But on probably more contentious issues, I think it's important. So I would like to see us come up with a way, or ask the city clerk to come up with a way to make that happen. And not for every single vote, but maybe it's changed up for each meeting. I think that would be a reasonable expectation, because trying to change the order of voting for every item on the agenda I recognize that would be chaotic. But changing it for every meeting, I think that's a reasonable ask. The other item that I wanted to mention, and I'm not sure if this has to be under council rules of procedures, but has to do with council travel. I don't think a lot of us really take advantage of trying to go to different conferences, and we probably should. But I would like to see some guidelines put in place on, what are the budgetary limits that, a council member can, hey, you can go to a conference, and if it costs less than a certain amount of money, you don't have to bring that back to this body. It's approved. If you go over a certain amount, between your flight, your hotel, your registration, et cetera, then that is something that would have to be approved by the council. But I think I would like to see something like that to, A, encourage folks to go different places, and B, just to, make sure that there's some transparency around what's expected. I think that's reasonable. And I'll add to that, and I've seen this on other boards, we all have announcements from the council. There's an item on our agenda about announcements from the council. If you go somewhere, hey, come back and share what you learned, share information with the council, with staff, with the community. Most of us up here that, still work full-time, we have to take off, we would have to take personal time off or vacation time off from our jobs to attend these things. So, despite what I know, I've heard from certain people in the community, that these things are just vacations for elected officials. They're not really conducting business. That's a farce. Like, I'm not going to take, time out of, my schedule at my job and take PTO just to go to a conference, on taxpayer dollars just for the heck of it. I'm going there to learn something to benefit the community. So I would just encourage us to really start looking at that, because I know we've talked to our city manager about that, and he's been going different places. So I think we need to do that as well, but I think that we need to have some policies and guidelines around that travel.
Okay, Ms. Martinez.
Right now, what Ms. Powell said, I think that's a great idea, but I think rather than council going, because we're just part-time, and like she said, we'd have to take time, some people from their jobs, I would rather see staff do it, because staff, that's their job, and we come and go. We're here for 4 years, but staff's here for a long time. I think it's a great idea, but I would rather see staff do it. That's what I like. That's my input.
Okay, Mr. Ortiz.
Actually, I didn't think we were going to agree tonight, Ms. Powell, but I agree with your thing for the conferences, because there is council members that go to a lot of conferences. Because I always look at the P-card reports, and they're always on there. But after they go to their conference and come back, they never tell us an update. So I agree that during council announcements, or just send an email to corporate council and ask Mr. Beck to disseminate it to us, so at least we know what they learned at these conferences. So I agree that we should be informed when they go to these conferences of what they're learning, or if it was a flop and don't recommend it for any of the rest of us to go. And then Mr. Surgis is out here. He's one of our county board members. They do what you're talking about. When it gets to a certain price, they vote for their board members to go. But then there's a caveat of letting that board member go, is that they have to give a report back to the county board colleagues saying, like, this is what I learned, this is what I didn't learn, and maybe you should go or not go to it. So yes, I agree with your thing on that. And then when it comes to the voting order, that one we're going to agree to disagree. All the nonprofits and boards and governing bodies I've ever seen or been a part of, they all go alphabetically, even our county board. They go alphabetically, but they're not in district order. So Miss Allen usually always goes first, and she's not District 1. So every structure of a formal body always went alphabetically from what I know. So I'm in favor of keeping how it is and seeing what the rest, everybody else has to say.
Okay, anybody down? Ms. Alfaro?
I'm in favor of changing the order of voting. I served on other nonprofits, et cetera, and it's usually just a vote that's open. The yays, the nays, the abstains, et cetera. And so I think it is helpful to switch it up a little bit to ensure that people are given an opportunity to vote first, to vote last, et cetera. I think to Council Member Powell's point, not all the things that we vote on are controversial. It's a lot of it's bids. It's usually 9-0, but there are some things that, you know, as you're at the end, you get to see how the vote's going, and you have a bigger say if you're the deciding factor, right? And so I think it is, to be equitable, be able to change it up. And I would be in agreement that every meeting it's a new process versus every single vote, right? To make it a little easier. So like this meeting, I would start, next meeting, Councilmember Dixon would start, et cetera.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Thorne?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've been listening to everyone's opinion. I thought I'd at least chime in, let you know where I think. Voting order, I kind of go with alphabetical. I mean, that's what I've seen all the time. Granted, I'm at the end. If I want someone to know how I'm going to vote, I always offer that up during discussion. But to me, every committee I've been on has always been alphabetically. And I know that there's electronic voting that some places do, and who knows, maybe that's something we could go to, but if ever, I would be in favor of staying alphabetical in the meantime. As far as executive session, I guess I'm a little indifferent there. I'm never going to say anything to anybody. I don't even talk to my wife about what we discuss in there. But if I wanted to take some notes for my own reference and take them out, I guess I would feel that that's okay. Usually I just rely on my memory for what we talk about, and it's just amongst us. It's really hasn't been a problem except once years ago before me, but few people remember there was someone that couldn't quit talking. As far as attending conferences, I'm kind of in between both Councilwoman Powell and Councilman Ortiz. I like the fact that and Councilwoman Martinez, I think it's more important that staff would attend, but not to preclude us, and that we could as well. So, I mean, I think it's really more important that they would attend some of those conferences, but if there is something that is a specific area that could benefit us knowledge-wise, certainly would be worthy, if we did, to give a report. So there's kind of my feelings on all these items.
Okay. Mr. Dixon?
Thank you. I'll start off with the conferences. One, I want to point out that staff already attends conferences. Those are approved by their manager, which is the city manager. And he has the discretion to send or not send people out from his staff to conferences. That is not controlled by city council at all. That's one point. The second point is there is value in getting outside of your municipal bubble, so to speak, and conferring with other elected officials or other people who are related to related or do work in the industry of city government in one way or another. There's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge that's shared, a lot of trends that you can find out. And if you don't step outside of your bubble, you never know what else are the possibilities and what other things are happening and going on. So, I'm in favor of conferences with some parameters, and maybe those same parameters match what is currently in place for city staff, so that we don't have two different standards. So maybe that's an easier way of getting that done. So I'll push that idea forward. And I'll move on to the next thing, which is voting order. For 8 years, I voted first until the lovely Miss Alfaro decided to get elected. Dixon was voting first, and in the conversations that we've had up here concerning the voting order, every couple of years, we have this conversation, and I say I enjoy voting first. So I'll submit to the city council. I'll vote first again, and that'll be the way that we change around the voting order. All right, there's no takers. That's okay. I will. When it comes to voting order, for me personally, I'm going to vote how I'm going to vote, and I don't care how everybody else votes. So voting first was great for me because I was not going to base my vote on how everybody else down the line decided to do what they were doing. So I think we keep on talking about it. I'm indifferent, but I think it's okay to change things around. So I'm in favor of changing the voting order, something that we haven't done. But also, too, I had a meeting with city manager on Monday this week, and we discussed the possibility of electronic voting. And so I don't know if the city manager wants to opine on that at all.
Sure. We're at preliminary stages, and the city clerk is helping out with this as well, where there would be electronic devices, so the voting would occur simultaneously.
Right.
And there would be different programs that would display on the screen for viewers what the particular item being voted on is, and maybe even pictures of the council members, so when the votes go, there's a red or a green button showing how it voted. So that something's in place. It would, obviously would take a couple months, need to talk to our IT team in the back and see what's necessary to wire this, but it's on the radar.
It's on the radar. So a couple of months or a few months, that's probably going to be in place, and then this conversation is really a moot point. So, but in the meantime, if we want to do random voting and try it out and have a little fun, hang loose a little bit, I'm okay with that. But we're going to have simultaneous voting eventually, and I think that's the way to go with this. So. If it passes, yeah, all right. Going back to the conferences real quick, we talked about the restraints, and I suggest that have ours match that of city staff. And I don't know what even city staff's restraints, if any, what those are at this point, and that probably plays a huge difference. But the two things I just want to point out that are really important is the total amount spent, but also the number of times. Now, me, I'm a director at my job. If I leave and I'm all gone for a week, that's work is piling up. I don't want to leave, right? So if I have to leave, or if I want to leave to gain some additional knowledge in this field of being an elected official, I think that's a great thing, but it's also going to come at a cost to me. So I don't see any colleague up here and knowing everyone here that you're going to take advantage of this. And I know that has been a thing in other places and other worlds and things of that nature, but I honestly don't have that fear of the elected officials that I serve with. But I just want to put out, if we can't match it close to city staff, coming up with a spending limit, which has already been pointed out is really important, but also the number of times that you go on a conference too. I think having those restraints would be good. So that's all.
Okay. Mr. Good.
I'll try to be quick here. So on the topic of voting, if we're exploring refining it in terms of like simultaneous voting, I would also like to potentially see exploration of how we document the meetings. Currently, right now, we broadcast this on YouTube, and they generate a transcript, but those transcripts are not that good. For example, like my last name is Good, so it can't really constantly identify a name to associate what's being said all the time. So there are some communities that are going the way of, like, if you've done a conference on Zoom, it assigns the speaker, and that way it generates, even though transcripts are imperfect, it still is able to tag who was speaking. So for accessibility reasons, post-meeting, those transcripts are much higher quality. So if we are considering going the route of revamping how we operate up here for simultaneous voting, potentially, I would like to see that potentially rolled into this larger project. In terms of switching it for a couple months, I don't, I feel similar to some of my colleagues. I don't feel really strongly one way or the other. I don't know if I want to use if it's not broke, don't fix it quote, but I just, yeah, Corey's anchored, or sorry, Councilmember Dixon has anchored that position for a while. I got used to it, so I'm glad we're having this conversation. I would like to see simultaneous voting. I think that'd be interesting. So that's my thoughts on that. And for conference, yeah, I just don't know. Is this going to be just for in-person conferences, or is this also for events that we're attending online? So that's just another wrinkle to consider. So I know staff's got a lot to think about. So I think I'll keep my comments to that point.
Okay. All right, we got a couple of issues here, a couple comments from me. I think that if we can talk to staff and look at a spending limit for conferences and a maximum. I think that's the important part if you want to, and I don't know about the individual conferences. If you want to go to, I would question somebody going to Hawaii for that, Mr. Cogley.
He never did that.
Oh, no. Used to go on vacation there all the time. And there are now a number of electronic options. Zoom meetings, I attend probably half a dozen at least every month, and the board meetings. And the council's always welcome to do those as well. Council order, don't care. Mr. Dixon, I remember when you first were on the council, you didn't like it initially, and you commented about that. I wanted to change it. You grew into the job and figured out how to do it, and I lived with it. So I think that, from my standpoint, I think that's going to require a vote if you want to change the order from the council, and I'm going to abstain on that because I get to go last anyway. So that's, I think that we discuss these things pretty much at length before we get to the vote, and I think that way most people feel comfortable. I think in my 20 years here, and I can't remember any time I ever changed my vote based on what other council members did. Wherever I used to sit in this seat next to the mayor when I first started, and I have not changed my vote as a mayor based on what the council does. I usually have my mind made up when I come in. And I remember Bob Gilliam for 40 years served as a city councilman, and he never bought any paper. He came to the council and he had his mind made up. He knew it was going to be on the agenda. He had his mind made up when he came here, and that's what he stuck with. And if he told you he was going to vote one way, that's what he did. So there are a number of ways to look at it. I can see it from both sides, so I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I think the executive session thing, I think we've kind of worked through that a little bit. We can deal with that internally. I'd like to make sure that we protect the things that need to be protected. I think that's the important thing, and we'll do that. So I think we have I'd like to have a motion from somebody on the council order. Ms. Powell, you brought it up.
Sorry. I'll make a motion that we alternate the order of our council votes for each meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
No.
Martinez,
No.
Ortiz,
No.
Powell,
Yes.
Thorne,
No.
Mayor Captain.
Abstain. Motion fails 4-3.
No, he abstained.
One abstention. So it doesn't move forward.
Mayor Captain,
Yes.
considering that we do have a council member that's not here tonight, and I'm not worried about the vote that we just took, but I would be interested, and I think we should all listen to maybe some ideas that Councilman Stefan might have regarding any potential ideas or changes that he would like to see in this ordinance as well. So is there a way for us to, I mean, I know we've had our discussion tonight. I'm sure when he comes back, he's usually pretty good about going back on video and reading and watching all of this and providing feedback.
Ms. Powell, you made the motion,
I-
and your vote lost, and now you want to go back and revisit it because he's not here? He wasn't here when we
I-
voted, and he
No, I
wasn't
don't
here when
think
you made the motion.
I don't think you heard what I said.
Yeah.
I said this has nothing to do with the vote that
So the
we
vote will
just took.
stand. Okay.
And I'm fine with
All
that.
right. Okay.
I'm talking about the other items
Okay,
that we discussed.
okay, that's fine.
Yes.
And I don't have any problem with that.
Yes.
I
I'm-
don't really want to go back and have the whole council revisit it all again, but if Mr. Stefan would like to comment on it when he comes back, that would be fine.
Yes, that was my point.
Okay.
So since we don't have to be in a rush to bring this back for final approval, I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to weigh in on this, including Councilman Stefan.
That's fine. We've got all summer. Okay, anything else? Announcements from the council. Mr. Thorne.
Thank you, Mayor. Many of you might have noticed, it's that time of year where the no fireworks signs are in the lobby and at the police department. I've kind of was the catalyst of that program and even had a little story in the Courier. Veterans and pets, many have issues with illegal fireworks, neighborhood fireworks. Leave the fireworks to the professionals. So there are signs out there. You can get them. I take extras, and some of my neighbors always ask for them. They say no fireworks are illegal in Elgin, etc. For the love of pets, for care about your veterans, etc. So the signs are down in the lobby here, free. Take some extras. One side's in English, one side's in Spanish. Secondly, very proud to be part of and attend the new citizen recognition program last night. And I don't think that there's anything that I have done up here on council where I see people that have more pride and excitement than when they become a United States citizen and they're recognized as such. So congratulations to all of them.
Okay, anything else? Ms. Alfaro?
Just want to echo what Councilmember Stefan said. The New Citizens event was amazing, and thank you to all the organizations that participated.
Actually, I'm
and
not
this-
council member Stefan.
Or Stefan, Thorne. I am so sorry. Thank you for correcting me, Councilmember Thorne. My apologies. Just wanted to echo what he said. That was an amazing event by all the organizations that put it together, as well as the city. I also just wanted to give a shout out to the Culture, Arts, and Special Events teams under Amanda Harris. They've been doing a lot of events lately. I went to the Juneteenth event. I saw Councilmember Powell at that event. They've been doing a lot of work, and so I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Okay, anything else? Ms. Powell?
Just also want to echo some of the things that have already been said. The new, the citizens event last night was wonderful. Shout out to all of the organizations that are involved with that. Special kudos to Jerry Turnquist, one of the founding members that puts that together every year. Jeanette Mahalik is very much involved with that as well. it's just always good seeing it as Councilman Thoren said, the pride that people have. That is a heck of a process that people have to go through to become a citizen here in the United States. So a lot of respect for those folks, and they deserve to be celebrated. A lot of us were there last night to do that. Second thing is Councilwoman Alfaro mentioned Juneteenth celebrations here in Elgin, thanks to our staff and our team that did some things out in Wing Park. Kudos to Gail Borton Public Library and several of the community churches that got together with the Elgin Symphony Orchestra and did an amazing event right on the lawn of the Gail Borton Public Library on Juneteenth. Very well attended. So just really wanted to shout out all the really good things that happen in our community. I didn't get a chance to attend Michelada Fest this year, but I saw pictures, and it looks like it was very well attended again this year. Lots of folks downtown. So I guess I can't continue to say that we have a festival park and don't have festivals down there anymore, because we are actually having festivals there, so that's a good thing. And there's a demand. There's a large demand for Festival Park and our facilities, and that's a good thing here in our community. So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ortiz.
All right. I agree with everything everybody said, but I'm going to go on my White Sox trip real quick. They won the game yesterday. They're not in last place in the league, but they're still in last place. But the silver lining is that Jerry is going to sell the team. So one day, my beloved White Sox might win something again. That's it.
All right. I have an announcement. This is an announcement that discussed briefly with other council members and last night. And there's some misinformation. And it's about the city's policy towards ICE. And our policy has been virtually the same for over a decade. Jeff Swoboda and I met with Jaime Garcia 10 years ago and talked about the fact that ICE was going to come to Elgin. And the discussion ended up that the city of Elgin would take no action to help them. At that time, we said we would possibly send a police officer along with ICE to make sure that the rights of the residents of the city of Elgin were not violated. That was our policy up until the new law was passed, and now we're not allowed to have the officer go along. When a person is arrested in the city of Elgin, when I mean arrested, that means that they're taken downtown to the police station and booked. They're fingerprinted. And the reason for that is they look to see if they're wanted for murder in Spokane, Washington. Goes into the federal database. And if that person is illegal and ICE wants to pick them up, they can do that. That's the extent of what we do. We only hold people here for a couple days because we don't have space. Then they go to the county jail, or they get bonded out and sent out. That's our policy. The city of Elgin has no contract with ICE, never have had a contract with ICE. They've done their own business. They're doing their own business now. Many of the people that are sitting up here disagree with what's happening and how this stuff has been going on. But it is not our control. We do not know when ICE is going to be here. Nobody calls the mayor at home at 4 o'clock in the morning and said, we're sending a group of people out to pick people up. I don't hear about it. I don't know if Chief Lally does. I would have my doubts that she hears all of them. They're working on their own, and I don't necessarily think that we have a part in it, and that's probably the best thing. So it is up to the federal government to do that. It's their responsibility. That's been our position for a decade, and I don't see that changing. When immigrants when communities around us were passing ordinances worrying about immigrants come to their community, we didn't do that. We didn't do that because we didn't see a problem, and we had no problem. Buses came, they went to Chicago, and Chicago dealt with it as best as they could. That's kind of been our policy, and we support people. Many of the council members were down last night supporting new citizens and going through the process to become citizens of the United States. They're already residents of the city of Elgin, and we've gone through that discussion in the past. What's a resident and what's a citizen? I think the important part from my take, that's one of my favorite things. I said last night I've signed over 750 certificates for people that became new citizens of the city of Elgin since I've been mayor. And it's always a proud day for every one of those people, and it's a proud day for me. And we're very happy to have them here, and we're going to do our best to do what we can do to make sure that their dignity and their integrity is protected. Announcements from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that Elgin's planning another full day of events for the 4th of July celebration, beginning with the parade, run from approximately 9 a.m. to 11 o'clock, and then a full evening of concerts and fireworks in Festival Park, beginning at 5 o'clock, going to the fireworks display at 9:20. This year, there's an opportunity for those that want to purchase tickets for a VIP lounge area that includes reserved bar access, lawn seating, restrooms, and an elevated viewing deck featuring umbrellas, ambient lighting, and excellent views of the stage and fireworks. For more information about this, you can go to the city's webpage, home site, or go to elginil.gov /July 4th. July 4, excuse me.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro?
Yes.
Dixon?
Yes.
Good?
Yep.
Martinez?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Thorne?
Yep.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, we are adjourned. We'll reconvene at the regular council meeting at 7:45. We'll call a regular meeting for the Elgin City Council for June 25th, 2025 to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Here.
Dixon,
Present.
Good,
Here.
Martinez. Here. Ortiz. Powell. Stefan. Thorne.
Here.
Mayor Captain.
Here. Approval of minutes of the previous meeting of June 11.
Approval.
Second.
Moved and second for approval. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, clerk please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 8-0. We have no communications this evening. We have no people signed up for public comments. That'll bring us to bids. First item is bid number 25-022, Highland Woods 2025 resurfacing.
Mayor, I'll move that we award this to Highland Woods Resurfacing Project Construction to Schroeder Asphalt Services in the amount of $3,096,098.
Second.
Moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 8-0. Bid number 2 is bid number 25-035, Riverside Water Treatment Plant, well number 5, improvements.
Move to award the bid to Connolly Electric Company of Addison, Illinois, in the amount of $3,933,000 for the water treatment plant and well 5A MMC improvements.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 8-0. Bid number 3 has been removed from the agenda per staff request. Item 4 is bid number 25-037, Country Knolls South 2025 resurfacing.
Mr. Mayor, I recommend we award this bid to Schroeder Asphalt Services of Huntley in the amount of $2,691,538.
Second.
Moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 8-0. Brings us to other business. First item is a resolution accepting the proposal of Alliant Property Insurance Program for the City of Elgin's property, inland marine, and cyber liability insurance.
Move for approval.
Second.
Move to second for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 8-0. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing execution of a purchase of service agreement with the Elgin Area Convention and Visitors Bureau for marketing and tourism-related services.
Move for approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Abstain.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 7-0 with 1 abstention. Congratulations, and we'll look forward to the next few years. Consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and second for approval. Any correction or additions? Hearing none, clerk please call a roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 8-0. Miscellaneous business.
Move for approval?
Second.
Moved and second for approval. Any discussion?
I have a question of clarification.
Ms. Alfaro.
Thank you, sorry. Are we also, when miscellaneous business, we're only doing the boards and commission minutes, or are we also doing the disbursement report?
I think-
It includes the, Chris will tell you.
I mean,
Yep.
it does include the disbursement report.
So we're
which is-
voting on the entire thing right now?
I mean, these are, reflects the disbursements that have been made, but yes, you are voting on that.
Yep.
You're not approving.
All right.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right, anything else?
Sorry.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Thorne,
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, motion's approved 8-0. Announcements. The next committee of the whole meeting will be Wednesday, July 9th, 2025 at 6 PM in the City Council chambers. The next regular meeting of the Elgin City Council will be Wednesday, July 9th, 2025 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Alfaro,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Thorne,
Yes.
Mayor Captain.
Yes, we are adjourned.